Okay, I think everybody who is going to be here in the chambers are here. So I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is 6:00 p.m. Welcome commissioners and welcome presenters to the Historic Preservation Commission meeting of September 11th, 2024. Glad everybody could be here. We have 4 or 5 commissioners online, and we'll get around to a roll call in a moment. But first, we will read our native land acknowledgement statement. We wish to acknowledge that Tempe is the homeland of the native people who have inhabited this landscape since time immemorial. These ancestral lands of the O'odham, known as the Pima, Peeposh, known as the Maricopa, and their ancestors extend far beyond our city. This land continues to be spiritually connected to the O'odham of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community and the Gila River Indian community. We accept the responsibility of stewarding those places and solemnly pledge to consider this commitment in every action. Okay, commissioners, we'll take a roll call. So we have Dr. Lechner is online tonight. Are you there still, Dr. Lechner?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm here.
All right. You mind doing our roll call for us?
Certainly, sir. I do not have a problem. Commissioner Davis.
Present.
Vice Chair Fackler. Vice Chair Fackler.
He's not here tonight.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Kuroka.
Here.
Commissioner Lamp.
Here.
Commissioner Melcher.
Here.
Commissioner Justice. Commissioner Robinson.
Here. You might want to go back to Justice.
Okay. Commissioner Justice.
She's here too. Speak loud enough. You can be here.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
here.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Williams.
Present.
And Chair Woodson.
Present.
Okay, we have 8 present. A quorum is constituted.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So we're doing a little switcheroo here. So Commissioner Justice has a working microphone. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Lechner. So moving on, agenda item 1, call to audience. Are there any persons wishing to address the commission that filed a comment card and are here to comment? I don't believe we have any today, so we will move on to agenda item 2, approval of July 10th, 2024 meeting minutes. Commissioners, you have a copy of the meeting minutes in your materials for the meeting tonight. And if you have had time to review it, if anyone has any comments or edits, please raise your hand or speak up if you're online. Come on, that was a contentious meeting in July. There's got to be some edits or comments.
This is Commissioner Williams. I did not see any corrections or edits. I have no comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. We always rely on you to catch the little nitpicky things so we can make sure it's all correct. So anyone else? Hearing none, then we will take a vote to approve the minutes of July 10th. And Dr. Lechner, do you mind doing another roll call for us, please?
No, I think we can just do a simple yay or nay. All in favor.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait. At first, we need to, of course, have someone put a motion on the table.
Yes, please.
This is Commissioner Davis. I motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. And a second.
Commissioner Lamp, second.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, we'll take a vote then.
Okay, all commissioners in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that's 8 in favor, none opposed. So
One
no motion.
abstain.
Oh, okay. So 7-0 with 1 abstention. Motion
Thank
carries.
you. Motion carries. All right, moving on to approval of agenda. Unless anyone has any issues or we need to rearrange. I'm not sure if we still know if the presenter for number 4 is here. Was there anyone else that joined online? You could ask, yes. Just so you know, there's an online attendee with the name of Jitali with a G. We're not sure if you're supposed to be the presenter for agenda item 4. So we're going to try to unmute you so you could at least give us a yes or a no if you're here for the presentation. Oh, okay. There should be a request that came to you to see if you would accept unmuting. I'm not seeing anything and nothing in the chat. All right, well, we'll just go ahead and proceed and just assume that that's not the same person. Okay. If there's nothing else, then I'll just motion to go ahead and approve the agenda then. All right, now we're moving on to agenda item 4. Request for a certificate of appropriateness to replace original aluminum slider windows with vinyl windows at this home at 1630 East 12th Street. And applicant and presenter is John Murata, and at this point, I don't think he is present. So
We can do other items and wait for that.
yes,
if
so
they
we
show
can
up.
table it for now. Okay, so agenda item 4 we will table for the moment. All right, then we're moving on now to agenda item 5, presentation on the City of Tempe, University Drive and College Avenue grade separated crossing project. And I believe we have a number of presenters here, so if you come to the microphone and introduce yourselves, we would be happy to hear your presentation.
All right. Mics are on already, right? Okay, great.
I believe so.
Perfect. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Chase Wallman, Principal Planner with the Transportation and Sustainability Department. And thanks for the opportunity today to get your feedback on 4 preliminary design alternatives for a pedestrian grade separation project at College and University Drive. I'm also joined today by members of the design consultant team. We have Jay from Bowman Group, and we have Scott from Smith Group. So I'm going to let them go over the preliminary design alternatives with you all, but before I hand it over to them, just wanted to provide this commission with some brief project history. So this project started in 2019 as part of an ASU commission study that the City of Tempe participated in. That study was commissioned to study 3 high pedestrian volume intersections in the downtown core of Tempe around the ASU campus. Those locations included Rural and Terrace, 6 and Rural, and University and College. Ultimately, the city brought forth the location at University and College to compete for federal grant funding. In 2022, we applied for and were ultimately awarded federal grant funding for completing the final design and construction of a grade separation project at College and University Drive, either an underpass or pedestrian bridge. With that, because it's federal funding, we had ADOT administer the selection process, which the City of Tempe as well as ASU participated in. Ultimately, Bowman Group was the selected design firm for them, and they also chose different sub-consultants such as Smith Group, who is here today to present. We kicked off the project in May of 2024. with utility research in the data collection phase. Before we started to do the preliminary design alternatives, we wanted to get stakeholder feedback to develop those preliminary design alternatives. So we reached out to the immediately adjacent property owners, which are ASU, as well as the Newman Community Center and the church at college and university. So we had a few stakeholder meetings with them to gather their feedback so that that can inform these preliminary designs that you'll see this evening. This isn't an exhaustive list of that feedback that we heard, but these are overarching themes that were repeated by multiple members of each of those organizations. So first, I'll detail the Newman Center. From that meeting, it was clear that there was a high priority on maintaining access to a few different points along College Avenue frontage. This included the alley, which gets a lot of pedestrian traffic as well. There's a main entrance of the Newman Community Center off of College, which was a priority for them to ensure that we were maintaining access and protecting that in place. Additionally, there's HVAC equipment that we needed to protect in place and allow access to for regular maintenance, as well as an additional staircase. Beyond that, there are concerns that they express as far as protecting in place architectural features and different significant features such as the flagstone that they have around the church. So that was of importance to them, as well as the age of the church building itself. They wanted us to be cognizant of construction impacts such as vibrations. That was a high priority for them. Additionally, any visual impacts that the improvements may have on the church from the frontages, that was a chief concern of the Newman community as well. As far as ASU, they recently renovated the alumni lawn, which is east of Katy Mall. So they requested that the improvements be concentrated west of the recently renovated lawn. Additionally, there's significant landmark signage, monuments that are there on the south side of University at College. So they stress the importance of protecting those in place. That's a place for photo opportunities, as well as a main gateway to the campus along College. So that was of high importance to the ASU stakeholders. And then additionally, they wanted us to be thinking about, as we develop these design alternatives, for the circulation of pedestrians around the Katy Mall, which is a highly trafficked area, as well as there's significant golf cart traffic, whether that's maintenance or for helping with mobility of students. So that was another consideration that we heard from the ASU stakeholders. And with that, I apologize for the text, but I will hand it over to Jay to go over some of the existing conditions of the site.
That looks interesting. So, good evening. My name is Jay Yenrick. I'm the project manager with Bowman. And just first up, some of the project goals. We really want to make whatever solution that we come up with to really be a nice place that people can really enjoy. So, the context of the area, it's very crowded, as Chase was just mentioning. The Katy Mall to the south, the church to the upper northwest corner, the Fulton Center as well. It has lots of people. In this area, there's up to 1,000 students at any one time going through this intersection in a peak hour, maybe up to 10,000 in a day. So it's really a really busy place with the transit center being right here, people coming down, a lot of residents, of course, in the same area. So how do we? Oh, wow. Is it just the arrow? Okay. Well, it seems like I lost one, but that's okay. All right. Well, here's some photos of the Newman Center. I understand this building is nearly 100 years old, that the church is. There's a lot of nice pavers that are installed to make it to be a very nice area. And there's this access way that we need to maintain that you can see on the top of the photos that the church wants us to maintain. They're going to build a building in this little gravel lot that you can see. Additionally, we will probably lose some of the palm trees when some of the solutions that you'll see. Here's the monuments that Chase was referenced to at the entrance to the Katy Mall. Fulton Center itself has been done really nicely with the similar paving structures and has a very nice look to it as well. And we want to maintain a nice, clean aesthetic. Here's some more photos of the Katy Mall. We have actually a similar rendering from a very similar view from that upper left corner. You'll see how the various alternatives fit into these into the surrounding area. And Bowman is also tasked with doing all the utilities. So this drawing here is what I'd like to liken to a crayon drawing that my daughter may have done earlier in her life. Every utility that you can think of that we have in this corridor, very similar in lots of places throughout Tempe, but up to 12 known utilities that we've found so far. And we're actually, APS is actually adding one more. They're adding a high-powered transmission line down the westbound university as well. So we're definitely have a lot to contend with, especially if the tunnel is selected, the tunnel option is selected. But we'll be able to go through all of these and move them out of the way. We've already started working with staff and with APS as well. We've had early conversations with SRP, and they have we'll put in a siphon for that infrastructure. So with that, I'm going to switch it over to the more pretty pictures and Smith Group.
Thanks, Jay. I'm Scott with Smith Group, Scott and I. We were tasked with studying 3 different options, 1 bridge and 2 underpasses. The bridge, after looking at that diagram of all the utilities, digging down doesn't seem like the easiest thing. So, first we'll start with the bridge here. On the north side, this thing lands on the west side of College here, if you look at the plan diagram. And the idea is that we tucked part of the ramp under itself so we could minimize how far north that's going. The bridge has to clear 17 feet along University, so the structure of it has to be about 20 feet tall. As you can imagine, at a 1 to 12 slope, we have about almost 300 feet of ramp that you have to try and fit in, right, along the right-of-way there in front of the church, also on ASU's campus there. So part of our goal was analyzing where we can land this thing on the north as well as on the south at on ASU's campus there. Luckily, there's a strip of underutilized land there along University to the north of the ISTB building there that allows us to wrap the ramp out to the west. Another idea we had is if we were going to make this thing iconic and kind of have a landmark to it, we would provide a large bleacher stair that dropped down onto ASU's campus, allowed for some shade and for people to sit and kind of have an elevated viewpoint of to the south of ASU's campus. So again, we're trying to create transit, this transitory space, but also provide some area and some ability for students to kind of engage with the structure itself. So that being said, I'll move on to the first rendering here. Oh, actually, they are working. Apologies. So the smiley faces that are moving right now were really supposed to show how you might move on the ramps here. And so you would enter along at the corner, you would wrap up to the north, back around. As I said before, the ramp tucks under itself for efficiency. So it's a little compressed. And this icon here will show if you were just going up the stair from the north coming south. Glad that works. It helps to convey how the circulation will work. So the first view here is a bird's eye view as if we were floating over the lawn area looking to the northwest. You can see the church in the background there. At 20 feet tall, this is a very large structure. That's one thing that's very hard to get around. We've met with ASU and some other stakeholders, and that was some very strong feedback we received from them. The idea again is to get some shade to the south there and a large bleacher stair, integrate some landscape up into it as well if we're able to, and really just create kind of a beautiful facade like the guardrails say that would help to unify this thing. There's a lot of ramp turns, there's stair drops, there's all these things going on. So the more we can do to kind of create a unified architecture there, it would help to simplify it. The next view here, as if you were driving west on University, shows the height of the ramp and how it comes down on both the north and south sides. Again, you can see the church there and the relationship of that, the ramp to the church. And here's a view if you were standing at the Fulton Center. Okay, finally. And just the sort of impact visually of how that might sit in front of the church. You know, we had some feedback from other commissions about the opacity of the current guardrail design. We could take steps to try and make that a little bit more transparent so it weren't so obstructive visually to that historic building. And the next options here, 2A and 2B, are tunnel options. 2A is going to have a ramp and stair on the south side. The tunnel would travel straight underneath University, and then the ramp and stair would come up on the west side of College Avenue, so in front of the church. The larger idea with these ramps and the tunnel itself is that it's very difficult to create a safe feeling environment when you're digging down into the ground. If students are having to go down there at night, you know, or even during the day, it might feel unsafe if you can't see around corners, if you have a lot of retaining walls that don't create kind of an open visual space. So on the south here, you can see we've pulled the ramps apart a little bit in a way that will prevent us from having to use retaining walls. So you'll have visual continuity from, you know, above at normal grade looking down into that area. So again, minimizing how many walls and things we have, keeping it open, and bringing landscape down into that space to make it feel more lush, to provide shade. If we were able to get shade trees, it would help it feel cooler for kids traveling, you know, in the middle of summer during the day. So those are the larger ideas for the south side. The north side there, you can see we're very cramped in terms of how much room we have. There's a lot of ramp. We're only going down about 11 feet here for the tunnels, so there is a little bit less travel distance for the tunnels versus the bridge. But again, we're just condensed on the north side, so we do everything we can to get the stairs and the ramps in, and maybe if we have a few feet to integrate a little bit of landscape on the north side there. So as you can see here, the blue smiley face is kind of traveling from the north to the south. The next one will, I believe, go, yeah, so the reverse way here. But as you travel under, you can see you wrap up to the north and then back to the south to get to grade. So what we've done is we've located the entrance to the ramp and the main stair here closer to the corner, so it's less of a journey for people who are walking along University to begin accessing that ramp. And moving on here, here's a bird's eye to the south of that ramp system looking north towards a mountain. Again, the idea of pulling these ramps apart, minimizing how much retaining wall we have to use in these projects, and guardrail, especially with the ramps. We really only need a handrail if you don't have a drop on the other side of it. So again, we can just have a simple handrail. We don't have to have a guardrail that would, again, obscure vision down into that space, making it feel safer, hopefully. And moving on, a view from the north here, looking down into the ramp and the church to your right. This is much more visually, much less visually impactful than the stair volume that would have to get you up 20 feet in the previous scheme. Option 2B here is,
Sorry,
go
could you
right ahead, Kyle.
Could you go back one slide?
Yep.
Is that a stairway entry?
Yep.
Like from this viewpoint, if you were to just go straight down in there, or do you have to go around to the ramp?
That's correct. We would provide a little jump stair so that if you were coming down toward, if you're walking the way that this view is looking, you would just walk down a few stairs and then take half the ramp down
Okay,
to access the tunnel.
okay, thank you.
So as many, I mean, the challenge in a lot of these things is trying to address a lot of different modal points, right? Because you have students walking from all different directions. So it's hard to really hit all of them. So we're trying to, just efficiently provide circulation as we're able to. And the option 2B here, great question, by the way, thank you. 2B here is very similar on the south side on ASU's campus here. The only difference is that tunnel on the north side of University here ends up on the college, on the east side of College Ave in front of the Fulton Center.
There's a stairs that you can take immediately too.
Yes, it's hard to see, and I'm not sure that I'm able to show it, but just south of the entry to the ramp, there's a stair that would bring you straight down into the tunnel as well. So you could come onto the landing and either head north to the ramp or head south down the stair. I hope that's clear. I apologize. The graphics are very small in these diagrams.
So there's 3 entrances then?
Well,
on
there'd be
that
2
north
entrances,
side-
but the
on north
main.
side.
Sorry, go ahead.
On that north side, you're saying there's 2 stairway entries as well as the accessible ramp?
Correct.
Okay.
The main ramp entrance also is a landing that you could go one way down a stair or one way to the ramp. So we provide that kind of decision point there, but then on the north end of that whole element, we provide a quick stair to get you up and out of there, or down into it, I guess, too. And again, this is just shifting things over to the east side. This was actually the first study we looked at. The first thing we noticed pretty quickly is that the right-of-way on the east side of College Avenue is much smaller. So there's some red lines shown in the diagram here. That represents having to shift College Avenue over and realign it. So those lines would eventually have to curve back to the street as it is now, farther north, which could be a challenge for the larger buses that turn on there. So that's one thing that, one reason we feel that the previous 2A version is a bit stronger. Also, your line of sight isn't straight through the tunnel in this option, which if you can get down into the tunnel and you can see straight out of it, it makes you feel a little bit safer to be able to see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. So, and these renderings are very similar. Again, on the right there, you can see the ramp is actually in front of Fulton Center instead of the church. So very similar elements on the south side. Option 3 is exactly the same on ASU's campus, but the idea is that we would have access points on both sides of College Avenue. So very similar here in the way that people would circulate through. Again, this would cause realignment and some issues regarding how much width we have there to fit all of that infrastructure in. 2 sets of ramps, all the stairs, and realign the street. So that might be a challenge with this scheme here. Also, you have blind corners, certain things within the tunnel that make it less desirable as well. And again, this is a very similar view, bird's eye from the south, looking over the ramps and the stairs and all that geometry that'll get you down into the tunnel. And then the north view here is showing, kind of the decision of which side you want to take. If you're coming on or walking south on the east side of College Avenue, you could pick or choose which one you want. You wouldn't be forced to cross the street to which side that's on. So there is a little bit better circulation in this scheme. So one of the things we're really excited about with, say, the tunnel schemes are the ability to integrate sort of that artistic component. Eventually we'll be bringing on an artist into this project. Having a really iconic or beautiful light scheme, or maybe a mosaic or a piece of art that is well lit in that area might entice people to go down there. You know, I mean, I think part of the problem and something we've acknowledged is that students will really do whatever they want when they're crossing, you know, and we're trying to encourage them not to cross at grade here to help traffic and safety and all that. So, I mean, you know, making this place like enticing to go down into is an important thing, but also feeling safe at the same time. So that's something that we're excited to work with, regardless if it's the bridge or a tunnel. But you know, the tunnel just feels like a very ideal opportunity to integrate some sort of lighting art into that.
Excuse me, do you want questions?
You
or
can
do you wanna
interrupt at any
proceed all the
point.
way? Okay.
No problem with that.
Are you saying that they will be, students and staff or whoever will be able to continue to cross the roadway at these points?
That's a great question. I will defer to our planners on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, is it Robinson? Yes, Robinson. Right now, we anticipate that we will maintain one north-south crosswalk on University, whatever side's the opposite side of the underpass, if that is the preferred alternative that moves forward. We're still studying that. We are certain, though, that we will be maintaining an east-west crosswalk on the south side of University Drive. So depending on which alternative is chosen, we're still working through that from the traffic engineering standpoint, but we will be maintaining an east-west crosswalk on the south side of University. And right now, we anticipate maintaining one crosswalk going north-south.
You mean the north side? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I was confusing myself.
Yeah.
Probably confused you all. Apologies.
And part of that discussion was, will there be a barrier or something needed if we were really trying to discourage kids from crossing there at all, right? So, but again, yeah, I mean, if a student's walking up and seeing a 20-foot stair they got to walk up, you know, depending if it's 115 degrees out, they might be, not excited about doing that. Same with the tunnel, although there's, better shading components to a tunnel than a bridge.
Question.
Sure.
Are you going to air condition the tunnel?
We will not be, no.
That would be an encouragement to use it.
I would imagine for people to hang out down there probably too. As I mentioned earlier, whether it's a bridge or the tunnel, a great opportunity would be to kind of integrate landscape down into the ramps or up onto that bleacher stair in a way that would soften it, and just feel like a bunch of concrete that you're walking down into that are radiating heat. If we're able to get trees and shade along the ramps that are going down into the ground, anything we can do to soften that up. And then playing with the textures of some of those things can make it a lot nicer as well, rather than just being, plain flat concrete as much as we're able to. And with that, I'll pass it back. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. So before we go on to any additional feedback or additional questions, I just wanted to go over our upcoming outreach and some of the additional outreach that we've held to date. Beyond the stakeholder meetings with the immediately adjacent property owners of Newman, Newman Community Center and ASU, we also went to Commission on Disability Concerns to get their feedback, as well as the Transportation Commission yesterday, obviously here tonight at Historic Preservation Commission. This slide, my apologies, is a little bit outdated. We will actually be going for our first round of public meetings October 22nd. That's going to be before going to a city council work study session to seek their recommendation on which alternative. The intent of doing all this outreach in the beginning is that we can bring the feedback that we hear from these three commissions, as well as the broader public meeting held on October 22nd. We'll have a 2-week open comment period as well for that. That we bring that to the council work study session to seek a recommendation on which alternative moves forward. That's on these 4 preliminary design alternatives. Once we have a recommendation on which alternative to move forward to final construction documents, we'll be holding additional public outreach with any commission that's interested, as well as the broader public meetings at the 30%, which will be a refined preferred alternative, as well as the 60% design. And we anticipate that occurring early 2025 through mid 2025, With keeping of that schedule, we anticipate design completion late 2025 with construction mid 2026. And today we are asking for, this is an action item that we are asking for a recommendation of a preferred alternative. And to state this a little bit differently so that we're consistent with our other commissions, we are seeking a ranked order of these 4 alternatives from this commission. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and receive any additional feedback that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much to all 3 of you for the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and open up the comments to the other commissioners first. So, commissioners?
This is Christy Melcher. Can I chime in for a second for ask some questions?
Absolutely. Please proceed.
Thank you. On the tunnel option, what are the options as far as safety? Will there be cameras besides lighting?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That is a priority for this project. We did get initial feedback from our crime prevention through environmental design staff, as well as Tempe PD, just for initial feedback as we begin to develop these designs. We're not at a stage of actually specifying the lighting yet. That'll be once we determine a preferred alternative. They gave us some standards as far as best practices for the Sept principles, the crime prevention through environmental design, about not making concealed spaces and increasing visibility. We received lighting standards from Tempe PD. We will be proposing cameras. There's been other feedback as well, how we can improve safety that we'll look at, including those blue call boxes. And all that will be specified when we have a preferred design going forward. But that's at the forefront of our thinking for either the pedestrian bridge or the underpass. There's some safety concerns that were raised about how high those panels are on the pedestrian bridge, and whether it should be canopied or enclosed, or what the visibility looks like on pedestrian bridge, as well as lighting underneath the bridge decks or the ramps. So those are all considerations that we will move forward once we have a preferred alternative.
Did Tempe PD bring up any questions about the unhoused and living in the tunnel?
Tempe PD did not bring up any questions to us about that. We do have other underpasses and pedestrian bridges, which we have proposed to treat similarly. I know we have a lot of resources available, like the HOPE team as well for that. We'll continue to work with our Sept staff on what other principles that we can do as far as design practices go, but beyond that, I don't think we're into the weeds yet of specifying anything differently.
Okay, and on the alternatives of the first tunnel and the bridge, what is the timing for construction?
The construction timeline will be dictated by the contractor for their means and methods of how they do it. I think we are anticipating that pedestrian bridge will likely be the shortest time frame, but the construction timeline is something that we're thinking about. Maybe Jay could talk more about the proposed precast. Construction timeline.
Yeah, construction timeline. Yes. So for sure, the bridge would be the quickest done. So we would just put in a couple piers, and then we would have a prefabricated bridge that we could set. And otherwise, the other alternatives would be a cut and cover. So we would come in and dig out. Well, we'd first do the utilities that I showed you. We'd get them all out of the way, and then we would do a cut and cover. So we would cut half the street, let traffic work on both sides, on one side of the street in 2 directions, and then we have segmented structure that we'll put in. So it'll be kind of like an arch, and it'll be built in kind of like in sequence, and then we'll flip it over to the other side. So it's much more involved to do the tunnel, but that'll be the timing. I don't know how long, like months or days or years or whatever. It won't be years, but how many months. So I'm not a contractor, so, but yes.
Okay, and then my last question is for the bridge. You mentioned that you've been to the Disabilities Commission. So what is the option? Because all I saw was stairs, so maybe I missed something. I saw the ramp on the tunnel. What is the option for the bridge for disabilities, people with disabilities?
Yeah, I'll go back. Which way am I pointing?
Let me try the keyboard. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there it was. I tried the keyboard, yes.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to add extra work.
No, you're good. I'm not touching it, promise. Okay. So this, if you watch the smiley faces, that's actually the path of someone that in a wheelchair.
Oh, okay. All right, I got it now. Thank you. I think that was all my questions.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments?
Hi, this is Commissioner Davis.
Yes,
I'm
Commissioner.
wondering where you are on the cultural resource studies. This particular area is immediately adjacent and probably within a humongous archaeological site. So besides the visual intrusion onto the church, obviously the tunnel and the bridge would cause subsurface disturbances. And just because there's already been a lot of utility work does not mean that there's not intact deposits there.
Yes. Fully aware of that. Yes, just had a meeting just before coming here today about that. So we are currently working with city staff, ADOT, and our team, which is Jacobs, and doing all the environmental work. Anything that we do, we'll definitely make sure that the cultural resources are reviewed. If it should be a cut and cover, the contractor would be required to have staff on hand should the discovery be found to take care of that. And obviously that would stop the project until we could assess the extent of those artifacts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Kuroka, you'd like?
Thank you. I think whatever you do for the underground options, I don't think I want to go down there at night by myself, personally. And have you reviewed what happened at the Camelback and 24th Street? I really don't know, like, do people use at night, the underpass, or did the people get mugged?
I don't know. You know, I did not find out about if people are getting mugged or not at 24th and Camelback, but I do know that it's being used a lot. I do know that they encouraged all the patrons to use it. I know they put up fencing to make sure that people would use that underpass. So what I've heard is that it's successful. So I don't know about any crimes.
Okay.
So unfortunately.
As a high school teen in Central Phoenix using that, I would say it's well used, at least it was for me. I appreciated having it.
Were girls using even at night?
At night, yeah, it's well lit. It's a comfortable. There's some underpasses that are more narrow. I think we'll strive to have a wider environment that's well lit and more comfortable. A lot of the feedback that we've heard is just experiences with other maybe more narrow underpasses or darker underpasses with bigger slopes going down there. So we're very cognizant of making sure that this is going to be a well utilized improvement that's comfortable and safe.
Yeah, this is 20 feet wide, so I don't.
Maybe it is impossible option, but I think if there's like a hole in the middle in the underpass coming open somehow, that might feel real safer. Oh, yeah, right.
Okay. So like
I'm sure it's challenging because you have to figure out the traffic and things like this.
Skylights.
Interrupted, and then, so I
Right at the median, we could probably do something like that, actually.
just a quick thought. I don't know, but for the bridge option, one question is: can this? So there's only one bridge option. Underground has three, and is it option to shift like over bridge, like option 2B on the other side?
Yeah, either way. So the Fulton Center is there's a facade that's in the way. So no, that's the limiting factor on that. I don't know. It's kind of hard to see in any of these images, but there's a facade that's a glass facade, and then the right-of-way itself that's available. The city-owned right-of-way is much greater on the Newman Center side. So that's our
Yes,
limitations.
I thought because Newman Center being historical, if we would like to, have less visual impact, it seems to make sense to put on the Fulton building side, I thought. And for the bridge option, if you can incorporate some shade, a little bit more shade, that would be great.
We've heard that feedback, and we'll probably take that an advisement, at least maybe over the roadway itself. We probably could add some shade
Okay.
elements.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Justice.
Thank you. A comment first, as a young-ish woman, I wouldn't feel safe walking across the bridge or in the tunnel at night. Just want to put that out there. It's the reality of the times that we live in. I call my man walking back to my car from this meeting even. So while it should be like a paramount concern, I don't think it should decide on the design. But in terms of opacity, you were talking about the bridge. I know it's not been designed, but what would be the idea behind the opacity of like the railings?
You want to do this one? Yeah. This wire. I would mess it up.
We heard some feedback that that most of the bridge obstructs views of that historic building, and that if we were able to, say, if you use cable railing or something that felt a little bit more open, it wouldn't feel as obstructive. So that was just some of the feedback we heard with other commissions.
Okay, is cable railing going to meet life and safety requirements for that? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, anything horizontal we tried not to do on bridges like that because people will climb it, you know? So that's, we can find something vertical that's less obstructive. There's a lot of options that we could do that weren't maybe as unified as the images that we presented. So,
Cool. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Further questions? Commissioner Robinson.
Yes, I have several. First of all, is there any way to shorten the length of this by either providing a lift for handicapped accessibility or another method for not having to ramp quite so long on both the tunnel and the bridge?
Mr. Chair, Member Robinson, from the feedback that we heard, we were intentional about maintaining the access on College. So that was a constraint for how long of a run, is why you see those kind of switchback ramps on the north side as well, to try to lower the profile of what those ramps look like on the north side. I'm going to get that right once tonight. On the north side. Beyond that, I think it's really dictated by the acceptable slope for ADA accessibility, as far as why they are designed the way they are, but I won't speak to that. We did get some initial feedback from Tempe PD about the alternative for an elevator and the Sept staff that we have as well. It wasn't recommended at this time, and it's something that we could continue to look into as well, but there were concerns about calls for service with other area elevators in the downtown core, as well as there's been an effort to limit access to those elevators either by time or by badge access, which will be difficult for a public right-of-way to restrict access to anyone. So it's not something that's been ruled out yet, but it wasn't recommended, at least initially, from our conversations with our Sept staff and Tempe PD.
Okay, well, I think if you look at the bridges that do currently cross University, the Palm Walk Bridge, there's a reason that, the Novus and Walton Center Bridge took 50 years to create another one, is because it's difficult to do, obviously. And neither of those have, what you would call the ramping around, and it's because of elevations that they come in and off of. But again, a graceful solution is only going to be acceptable at ASU. I think that what happens here, especially where you're limiting the width of College when you go north, twice, you know, when you separate it on the east and the west, and you're ramping on both sides. I think that is probably going to cause all kinds of issues with regard to actually using that road. And honestly, I don't know if the buses use that road or not, but yeah, that's going to be tough. So I am kind of surprised there's only one bridge option. You know, I looked at your concept images, and I see that you've got the High Line in there, you know, and several other very graceful bridge appearances. Now, the High Line, of course, is not so attractive on the lower level because it's, you know, a train trestle, you know, but, you know, when you talk about a bridge, you want something that's very clean and doesn't obstruct the architecture surrounding it, particularly I mean, I believe the church is on the National Register, is it not? You know, so you don't want to have something that is obstructing the views to that building. I know we do it a lot here, but it just seems that from a historic preservation prospect, you would want to maintain those views to any building that is to be preserved, you know. And ASU doesn't necessarily hold their buildings as sacred. I mean, they plant trees all around them, you know, and obstruct them to a certain degree, but entrances and exits to buildings and to spaces are very well thought out. And you know, I guess what I'm thinking about tunnels do feel very unsafe to me, but I can see where if it's an underground solution where, you know, for instance, where the Hayden Lawn, you know, entrance has an underground, but it's open solution. There is a lift or an elevator there for handicapped accessibility. It's not the most desired place, but anything that's covered is going to be considered, I think, to be not a desirable, unless, of course, it becomes occupied space. Like if you were to build something underground there that would be occupied. But then again, you've got I don't know if you've gone to the lower levels of Cougar Hall. It's not a very desirable place, and it feels very cold. And I know that there are ways that you can design it so that it doesn't feel that way. And I think that would have to be a part of your solution if it was going to be successful. But again, tunnels are they're prime for vandalism, you know, and for hiding. I think you'd have to really be thinking about how this is done if it's going to be a tunnel. So I guess my concerns are visual and of course safety.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Robinson. And Jay, can I pull you back up here to talk about some of the dimensions that we have? Because I know that was brought up with the sidewalk widths and maybe what the ramp widths are.
So the tunnel itself is 20 feet wide, and it'll be almost 10 feet tall. And so with that arch, that prefabricated arch is what we're currently looking at. And so it should feel quite open. I think it's very similar to the one that was mentioned at 24th and Callenbach. And so that's one of the things. And so the walkway itself, like I said, would be 20 feet wide. That one stairs down that we talked about, we'll kind of cut that off, and then it'll be about 12 feet wide for the ramp going up, you know, the reverse ramp for the tunnel solution. What else? The sidewalk widths. Oh, the sidewalk widths? Well, for which I'll have to.
And the ramp impact for remaining sidewalk width.
Yeah, so we're you know, there is quite a bit of a nice wide sidewalks right now. There's 20 feet wide plus. We will be impacting that, and we'll probably be reducing that depending on the alternative. Like you can see on the 2A on this map, I don't know, it's very difficult to see. Maybe it's too small to see. It'll probably be about 8 feet wide. So like these more grand sidewalks will be reduced. The one problem that we do have is alternative 3, which is going to be much more narrow because we're going to be fitting in 2 ramps and then trying to squeeze in a roadway in the middle as well. So 3A is the one that has the geometric constraints that are going to be a little bit more difficult. Probably no trees, like you mentioned, the trees in front of Fulton Center and or the church. So the trees will probably go away as well. So it'll be very narrow.
I think my concern with the length of it is people will, I mean, students will do anything to shortcut their path. You know, so if it's lengthy, they're going to cross the road. They're gonna, which becomes then more dangerous than it is now, because at least now they wait for the light to change. So that sort of goes back to my original question is, will there be an option to cross on the surface if it's a bridge or a tunnel? You know, because yes, it might reduce the number of people that are crossing there, but unless it's a real amenity, people will not use it. They simply won't. It's just, it won't be practical. And even if you make it beautiful, if somebody's in a hurry to get to class, they're going to go the shortest way. So if you can reduce the length in any possible way, I would suggest that becomes, especially at this location. Katy Mall is one of the more picturesque malls of the university, and they highly prize it. And to have something like this at the end where you've got your iconic church over here and the Fulton Center on the northeast, it becomes cluttered with what appears to be a very busy bridge and or tunnel. I mean, the tunnel becomes less visually obtrusive, but very long. I mean, it appears to be.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate the comments. And just to be clear, ASU did commission the study to begin with, right?
Correct. The
So
original
ASU
study, yes.
wants this.
Oh, I don't disagree that they
No,
want
yeah,
safety.
No, I know. I wasn't clear if you were asking whether ASU would not want it or not. I'm not.
Well, they're picky about what they want.
That is true. Okay. So has ASU already reviewed these designs as well?
Yeah, they were part of those initial stakeholder feedbacks. They're part of our, they're a key partner, part of our core team, as well as partners on this project. We are continuing to get additional ASU feedback as well on these alternatives. So we haven't done all of it so far. We've reached out to the architect's office and some other ASU staff as well to get their initial feedback, but we're making our rounds through everyone at the ASU community.
Right, so that's a question. Have you gotten Byron Sampson's input, who's the landscape architect, and or Joe Lazuski?
Yes, we have two staff members that are on our core team, and that's Norm and Joe from the architect's office. Yes, and they were part of, they were part of the scope development process as well as the selection process for the consultant. So we've engaged them early on, and they were part of the letter of support for the project to move forward to get the federal grant funding. So they remain a partner on this project.
Okay, thank you. All right. So again, going back to your original request here is that you'd like us to provide you with our recommendation for ranking these four options in addition to other comments or suggestions we've already provided. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
Okay. I only have a couple questions. So just as far as your anticipated budgets with the grant, would all four of these options be feasible with that amount of money?
Right now, we just have a rough order of magnitude for those costs. We do have the program funding for the alternatives program in the CIP right now, the 5-year CIP. We're pursuing additional grant funding as well. I think seeing how these other construction projects have been coming back rather inflated with all these bids, I think we recognize the need to get additional funding as well. So we're going to continue to seek additional grant funding for this. But right now we do have program funding for these alternatives, but we don't have it narrowed down until we have a preferred alternative to get a real cost estimate.
Okay, thank you. And some of these, I only had really one other question because some of them you answered already, but I was just curious about if you've looked at these other examples of bridges versus tunnel crossings over streets, and I know you've referred to the one at Camelback and 24th, but is there any general kind of study about this, whether here in Phoenix or elsewhere, about, pedestrians' behavior as far as when they have an option of going across the street or under the tunnel, or if they don't have to wait for the light? I mean, is there any kind of indication as to which would be a better option, a bridge or a tunnel?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I won't try to speak on that matter. But it was the preferred alternative in that preliminary study. They did counts during that time and studied that option, and they recommended that alternative move forward for an underpass during the 2019 study. So I know that's been studied in the past, but I won't be able to speak on it now. But we can get that information to you as well.
I'm sorry, the 2019 study recommended the underpass?
Underpass or pedestrian bridge. Great
Oh,
separation.
okay,
sorry.
either or. Okay,
Great
got
separation.
it. Okay, thank you. All right. Any other comments or questions at this point? Okay. Well, I guess you have it already organized 1, 2, 3, 4, basically. Would anybody suggest a different ordering than what they already have on the list?
And that was not intended to be any sort of
Sure.
preference or rank order on our behalf.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that the Y option is really going to be difficult because of cost concerns and the other issues you brought up, and with all those underground utilities. I mean, I kind of get the feeling that that's a pretty low probability selection. So it seems like that's going to probably be the number 4 choice.
We're looking for your feedback.
That's-
That is the most impactful
Yeah.
alternative of the 4.
I mean, personally, that's what I would feel like. And I don't think the angled alignment is going to be, less, it won't induce people who are already going to be kind of have a concern with going in a tunnel if they can't see across it. So to me, that also seems like it'd be in the low. I personally don't have a strong preference for the bridge or the tunnel. I'd lean slightly to the tunnel just because of the visual impacts to, the church as well as just the general vicinity. That's my own personal, perspective. So I would rank them number 2A as a top one, and then the bridge second, and then those other 2 at the bottom. So I'm just throwing that out there as chair. So anybody else, if you have another opinion, let's fight.
I would second that.
I'd like to say that this is Christy Melcher. Hey, I think that the bridge would be my first option. I'd like to echo what some of the other women commissioners said. I would never walk under the tunnel. I would, especially under the circumstances. I'm an ASU alum, but when we've got drunk college students at night, I just wouldn't. So I would definitely take the bridge over. And I do frequent downtown. I go to ASU football games and other sporting events down there, as well as, alumni events. So I would definitely say it would be the way it's actually outlined, the bridge first, then the underpass, 2A, 2B, and then alternate 3.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that comment. So I guess maybe we could just just take a quick poll. Maybe those who favor how it's ordered on the presentation 1, 2, 3, 4, or putting the bridge as number 2 and the straight across tunnel as number 1. So maybe we'll just, if you vote for the order as it is currently written with the bridge as number 1, if you could just say aye.
Aye.
I have
Aye.
a question about that.
Okay.
If I wanted to vote for a bridge, but not this bridge, would I vote aye?
You would vote aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, so that one more time. So Commissioner Robinson, and how many online?
Commissioner Davis.
Commissioner Melcher.
Commissioner Williams.
Okay, so that's 4. Okay, anyone else here? All right, and then I guess that only leaves 4 others. Or is there, so we've got 4 here. So Lamp, Woodson, Justice, and Kuroka would vote for the tunnel, or is there someone else online I missed? Well, we seem to have a conundrum then. Well, I think that maybe we might just, go with that then. It sounds like there's, fairly evenly split between 1 and 2.
Sorry. I'm alternative. I like to switch it to 2A and 2B. I understand it's straight and may feel safer, but I don't know. Visually, a little more appealing than just straight shot seems boring to me. So,
Okay.
but if you ask, I only have two options. I will go with the order of this.
You would go with the bridge?
Yes.
Okay, so you're switching your vote, so we've got 5. So I guess that means that overall we would prefer the bridge as the number 1 choice then.
And then to clarify, the underpass west would be the second. And
2A,
2B,
yes.
and okay.
I think so, yes.
And again, we'll be going out for additional public outreach, and we'll be asking the same question of the public as well on October 22nd, and then presenting all the feedback, the additional comments that we received during the council work study session.
Very good. Okay, well, thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate your time, and good luck with the project.
Thank you.
And thank you. All right, interesting topic. Okay, we have one more item on the agenda, but I just want to check again.
Yes, the person is online.
Oh, he is. Okay. All right. Then we are back to agenda item number 4. Request for certificate of appropriateness to replace original aluminum slider windows with vinyl windows on the home at 1630 East 12th Street. And we have the presenter online, Mr. Murata.
Good evening. Yes, I'm online.
Yes. Thank you for joining us, and you can go ahead and proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
All right. Well, we purchased the home, 1630 East 12th Street, and we proceeded to do a remodel on the home. I'm going to claim a little ignorance here because we weren't aware, or I wasn't aware, neither was my brother, that our home was in a historic district. Now, granted, I realize that that's not an excuse. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So we remodeled the inside, we remodeled the outside, cleaned it up, painted it. We did have a broken window in the home, so we decided to go ahead and replace the existing single pane aluminum with dual pane vinyl windows. The same style per se. They slide from left to right or from right to left with a screen. So I'm kind of asking the council if it would be okay if we keep our existing windows, the upgraded windows to the home. Aesthetically, we're just looking at aluminum color versus white vinyl.
Pardon me. Thank you. Was that the extent then of the presentation? I just want to make sure before we start chiming in.
I mean, it is. I really don't have anything other than what you're displaying here on the screen is the original pictures of the home versus what the home kind of looks like today with the upgraded windows.
All right. And I think that was kind of touching on the one question. There is that one photo that you show. I'm trying to see here. Are those first 2 photos in your presentation packet materials? Those are the old aluminum slider windows, or?
Yeah, correct. So these were taken by somebody else. I didn't have, or I couldn't, I'm not sure if I could, well, I'll take that back. I'm not sure if I sent these in or not, to be honest. I don't remember. And I don't recall having existing or original pictures, but this is what the home looked like when we purchased. So you can see that the 2 front windows here are aluminum. And then if you were to advance the slides, you would then see, here's an original picture of aluminum.
Okay. Yes, I see. So it looks like.
Yeah. So here you have this, the first picture on your left, or when I'm looking at the screen on the left, That is the front, I would call it the large window into the living room. And then the picture in the center is a bathroom window. And then the one on the right is another bathroom window.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you for the information, and I'm going to open it up for any questions by the commissioners.
Okay.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
This is Commissioner Robinson. So you're not changing the size of the windows or the type of the windows other than from aluminum to vinyl, is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Justice?
Couple questions. Was there anything beyond the broken glass of the one window? Was there anything wrong with the windows as the aluminum sliders?
Other than not being very energy efficient, no.
It looks like they may have already had that low E coating on them though. Did they? That's it. That's what it looks like in the pictures, and obviously, like, we haven't seen the aluminum sliding ones. Do you know if they had that on there?
To be honest, I wouldn't know what to look for as far as a coating on the glass. I don't recall seeing a coating on the glass.
Okay. Usually that low E coating gives it kind of like a green tint, like it almost looks like a sea glass type color. And you can kind of see that in both the aluminum slider ones and the white vinyl ones. I was just curious if you were aware, but that's the
No, I
extent of
wasn't.
my questions. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions, commissioners?
I have a comment.
Yes, please proceed.
So I'm very sympathetic. I'm sure he would like the dual pane compared to single pane, and the windows is from 70 so far. It's just clear glass. And I recall Andre building on Mill Avenue, which is I think it's a National Register of Historic Places. And that window, they put the vinyl window, which was not exactly matching what they had. That was kind of allowed, and I see why this one, it's in a historic district for the Tempe, but not for national or something. And the house was built a lot later compared to other houses. So I feel like this is nothing. I mean, he should be able to keep these windows when the historic building can keep those vinyl windows. It just seems not fair to make him replace to the old one. But I have questions so far. I'm ignorant about these things. So it seems to me this color change has more impact than window itself. So is the wall color really doesn't matter? Because it's not in the question here, so I guess not. Just a little surprised. Visually seems to have more impact. Is this like sandblasted or just painted? It doesn't look just painted, but I don't really know. So
We had the exterior brick sandblasted.
Oh, it was sandblasted.
Yeah, there's several homes on the street currently that have this look. So we really wanted to kind of tie in with the existing neighbor directly to the left of this home, and then also across the street. There's another home with the brick that's been exposed rather than painted.
Well, it hasn't been in the question, so I guess it's nothing to.
Yeah, I just wanted to explain that to you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
No, actually, I personally I like the sandblasted look, but it's visually seems to have more impact than the window change. It's just my personal opinion comment. So it's not in the question, so it doesn't matter, I guess. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Lechner, are you still with us?
Yes, I am, Chair.
I was wondering if you might chime in here because there were some comments on the submittal memo that you provided for this about this particular building. maybe not being a contributing element to the district, or it was, but it shouldn't have been, or can you clarify that?
Sure. So the Borden Hills Historic District is listed in both the National Register of Historic Places and in the Tempe Historic Property Register. But this particular property, 1630 East 12th Street, is only considered a contributor to the local district. The National Register nomination for Borden Homes Historic District specifically excludes this home because it falls outside of the period of significance for the neighborhood, which is basically the late 40s, 1940s through the possibly the mid 1950s. So this being again built in 1971, it's kind of well outside of that period of significance. For whatever reason, and I did some digging, and I couldn't figure it out. I talked to Joe Nucci, prior City of Tempe Historic Preservation Officer, Historic Preservation Officer, in fact, when Borden Homes came in as a local historic district, and I asked him, was there any reason why this particular house, even though it falls outside of the period of significance, was included as a contributor, and he could not recall. It's possible that, again, as I think I mentioned in the staff report, that just the fact that it more or less kind of ties in the design of the home, the exterior ties in with the other homes in the district, with the exclusion, other contributors, I should say, with the exclusion of the aluminum windows, for example, casement windows are the standard for Borden homes, and that's much more of an early post-war type of design. So I think that's why it was included. And my recommendation was staff recommendation was to grant the certificate of appropriateness because I feel like there is some loss of historic integrity with the windows. However, I would consider it fairly minimal, and the fact that I'm not really convinced that this belongs as a contributor to the district. I mean, I'm certainly not suggesting we remove it. Uh, yeah, it leads me to believe that this is not a significant enough change to deny the request by the applicant. Does that help clarify things, Chair?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I
You're welcome.
appreciate the clarification.
Of course.
All right. Any further questions or comments from the commission?
This is Commissioner Melcher. I have based off of what Dr. Lechner just said, I think my question is not really, or my comment is not really that important anyways. I think I agree with what he was saying. But I would say I've sold in a lot of historic districts in the city of Phoenix. And the tide has changed, and it was a big deal, especially at the turn of the century, amongst neighbors and amongst communities, to change the windows in historical districts out there. But that has changed, and I think, as mentioned before by the other commissioner, the heat in Arizona, just it's almost common sense to change the windows because those aluminum windows were not energy efficient. Not even just for the tenting that we were talking about, but the the seal, whatever they're called, the aluminum parts of it contracts with the heat. And some of the other windows, even in the 60s, were just, there was no insulation. The windows by Hallcraft Homes was just placed inside of the aluminum. There was no even real protection from the heat whatsoever. So I would say that, the windows aren't as much of an issue in a lot of the other historic neighborhoods. So that was my contribution. I'm sorry for it to be so long-winded.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment, Commissioner. Any further comments? Commissioner Justice.
Dr. Lechner, I have a comment/question for you. Is there a way, because this property owner was not aware that he was buying into a historic district, is there a way that in the future, it doesn't have to be like right now, but we can work with realtors in the area to maybe come up with like a process or maybe some information so property owners are aware of what they're buying into.
Yeah, it's a good question. Commissioner Justice, a good suggestion. It's something that you know we've talked about in the past at a staff level. You know how to do that. Certainly for kind of existing homeowners, you know, in the past we've periodically kind of sent postcards or sent letters, you know, kind of talking up the benefits of historic preservation and historic districts, but also to inform to also inform them that or remind them that they live in a historic district and kind of what that means um, from you know from a they angle of if they choose to alter or attempt to alter the building or the house. Um, yeah, we looked into one of the provisions or one of the I guess the recommendations in the historic preservation plan that was the updated version that was adopted a couple of years ago um, was to essentially provide documentation to the assessor's office or recorder's office, I believe, Maricopa County's recorder's office, to kind of indicate, you know, that a home is located in a historic district. There was some kind of complicated legal legal reasons that our city attorney's office said that we wouldn't be able to do that. Um, so since then, you know, I've kind of been looking for ways in which to, um, you know, to better inform prospective, you know, home buyers that, you know, a particular property is either individually listed at the national or the local level, or listed at either level as part of a historic district. So I'm welcome to. I mean, I'm open, I should say, to you know any feedback that you or anyone else might have to you know to help facilitate that or to make that kind of that information kind of more readily available, you know, to realtors and potential home buyers. But at this point, it's still something that I'm you know kind of trying to work out in my brain, I guess.
Okay, thank you. I
Sure.
have some tools from my previous tenure at the Florida SHPO with local communities, so I'll dust those off and send them to you, and maybe we
I'd
can work something out.
I'd appreciate that. That would be very helpful.
Sure, thank you.
Can I, Dr. Lechner, can I speak to that?
Mm-hmm.
Since I'm a real estate broker, I've been a real estate broker in the Valley for 32 years. So there's a couple questions that I was gonna actually bring that up, and I kind of forgot. So this is my question would be to the applicant. Did you were you represented by a realtor?
Excuse me. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did they give you a seller property disclosure statement?
More than likely.
Okay. So for anybody
Christine,
who doesn't,
again, right? Ignorance isn't an excuse. I'm not trying to claim one for sure.
and I'm not blaming
we
you.
just weren't aware. Yeah.
I'm
We
just,
weren't
yeah,
aware.
I'm just responding because we were talking about for realtors to be able to advise. So to go back to Commissioner Justice's question, with realtors, when you list a property and or if you're representing the buyer, we have tools that are available, but sometimes online, like so for instance with the city of Phoenix, there's a map of all the historic districts, so we can just go and Google and do the research. Same with the homeowners or the home buyers. But also when you're represented by someone, there's something called the seller property disclosure statement that the current homeowner needs to fill out and disclose whether it's in a historic district or not. And then there's something called the buyer's advisory that's given to every buyer. And that also has all sorts of links to things, everything from crime to whether it's in a vicinity of an airport. if it's in a historic district, that type of stuff. So there's active links. So I would suggest if we're looking at that, I don't know if there's anything from the city of Tempe on there, but that would be a great resource, is to talk to the local realtor associations, and I can help you with that. If we need to update the buyer's advisory with historic preservation, or if there's already an active link, we can figure out how to like link up with that link.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll be happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting discussion. Any further comments or questions at this point? All right. Thank you again for the presentation. And at this point, the recommendation of staff is to approve the certificate of appropriateness. So if I can get somebody, there's a sample motion in the material. If there's a commissioner who would like to make that motion, then please do so.
I move to approve the applicant's request for a certificate of appropriateness to replace all original aluminum slider windows with vinyl windows on the home at 1630 East 12th Street, a contributing property in the Borden Homes Historic District, Tempe Historic Property Register designated historic district, contingent on compliance with the recommended conditions of approval.
Thank you. That was a long one. Do I have a second?
A second, Christy Melcher, Chairperson Melcher.
Thank you. All right. Dr. Lechner, I guess we'll take a roll call on this one.
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Karuka,
Aye.
Commissioner Lamp,
Aye.
Commissioner Melcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Justice,
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Chair Woodson.
Aye.
All right, that's 8 in favor, none opposed.
Very well. Thank you, Dr. Lechner. Motion passes. And to the applicant, are you still on the line? Then you have our approval on this side. And I'm not sure what the next step in this is, but this proceeds on to Dr. Lechner.
Yes,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Murata will receive from the Historic Preservation Office within the next 48 hours a letter which takes essentially constitutes the certificate of appropriateness. So describing the decision and noting the conditions of approval.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Murata.
Thank you for your time this evening. Apologies for my tardiness.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on then to the last agenda item, number 6, update on the city's draft ADU ordinance, accessory dwelling unit, or, right? Yes.
Correct.
And
Accessory dwelling unit.
discussion of the proposed historic preservation language. Dr. Lechner.
And also Ryan Levesque will also be presenting. Mr. Levesque might want to kind of begin since what I'm talking about is a little bit more specific. So Mr. Levesque might just want to provide a bit of a overview of kind of where things stand since we last discussed this with you.
Thank you, Zach.
Good evening. Welcome.
Commission members, Ryan Levesque, Deputy Director for the Community Development Planning Division. So I'm here to kind of provide you kind of maybe a baseline of where we're at in the process and what our current draft language is. And so to help facilitate this discussion Zach and I had was, is there a way where we can draft up some language that might allow the Historic Preservation Officer ability to administratively accept certain types of ADUs that would come in through a review process that would be deemed acceptable, or what that threshold would be necessary in order to bring an ADU that might exceed the threshold and require a formal meeting with HPC Commission about some design changes that may affect an example of an attached ADU to a historic building. So right now at this time, we had gone to present the draft ordinance language to the Development Review Commission. We received a unanimous consent 7-0 from the DRC. The ordinance language that basically allows any property that allows a single family dwelling on a lot to have an one attached and one detached ADU. So that's up to 2 ADUs on a single family property. Also, the ordinance allows for properties of 1 acre or more, a third additional accessory dwelling unit. Now, the caveat to that one is that the owner has to agree to designating one of the 3 ADU units to be affordable income restricted. And what that means is that you're offering it at a rent and to an occupant that meets eligible for the affordable income requirements of no more than 80% of the area median income. So that would affect, what they're making on income wise, as well as what that rental price would be for that rental unit. And then, so the city would be responsible for monitoring that ADU would be maintained as an affordable restricted unit in order for them to have a third unit on the 1 acre or more property site. There's only about 230 approximately properties currently in Tempe that meet that 1 acre size requirement. Majority of them are in South Tempe AG zoned lots, and a lot of them are actually, frankly, in properties with HOAs or CCNRs that may even preclude one from having an ADU if they so choose to in the CCNR restrictions. But nevertheless, that's the framework for what's allowed and mandated by the state. We also have size requirements. The maximum allowed size requirement for an ADU is up to 1,000 square feet or no more than 75% of the main residence. So basically, if your home is over 1,333 square feet or more, then you're going to be able to get that maximum 1,000 square foot ADU unit. Any home smaller than that, then your size of your ADU unit, maximum size anyway, starts shrinking. But we've commonly seen ADUs can typically range anywhere from 500 to maybe up to 1,000 square feet. So there's a wide range of diversity of sizes of ADUs. They do have to comply with setbacks. The state has also given a mandate allowance of giving a greater setback of no more than 5 feet from the sides and rears of the property line. So that means if you live in a subdivision that had a greater setback, these ADU units are allowed to encroach within that, but no more than up to 5 feet from the adjacent property line. And then let's see. And there are also a lot of strict requirements pertaining to the state law that preclude the city from requiring or instituting any form of design review that may be thought out as regulatory in nature. So we can't affect the materials of it, we can't affect the design of it, but we do know we have a historic preservation process that the property owners has agreed to in terms of the overlay. For the purposes of this process, we feel it's still appropriate and in effect because of the HP overlay designation. Other than that, I'll be open to answer any questions that specifics you might have regarding the ADU process, and maybe we can look into what Dr. Zach Lechner is proposing for the language, and then I can provide any specificity you might need at this time.
Very well, thank you very much.
Chair,
Any questions on the general presentation of ADU ordinance, draft ordinance?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Did you say that the city has no jurisdiction or no ability to contribute comments to what it looks like, what the unit looks like?
Yeah, the state law language specifically states that municipalities shall not regulate the design materiality of the accessory dwelling unit. So that does preclude obviously HOAs or CCNRs that can create greater restrictions on a property. So HOAs do have the ability, if they do allow an 80 unit, they do have the ability to have architectural control, but specifically the state limited municipalities from being able to do that.
Thank you.
All right. If no further questions, then I guess we'll move on to Dr. Lechner's comments of the proposed language regarding historic homes.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, if we could go ahead and advance the slide. Yeah, okay. So there's a lot of text on the slide. I apologize for that. But so this is some draft language that I created, and I shared this previously with Chair Woodson and got his input, and then also sent it out to all commissioners a few weeks ago to get your input on it. So this would be language that would not be included in the ordinance itself, the ADU ordinance itself, but rather would be included as part of a an FAQ user guide that would be available to residents online that they could consult. And this pertains specifically to uh, to buildings that are or properties that are historic that have an H overlay and are of course residential. So what I was proposing is that a proposed ADU, and again, this would be kind of this. Let me back up here for a minute because I'm kind of going forward before kind of explaining this fully. The idea here is that we're trying to streamline, as Mr. Legg mentioned, we're trying to streamline the process a bit for people who own H-designated properties, whether they're contributors within historic districts or whether they're individually listed, to streamline the process by which they might be able to get approval to construct an ADU on their property. And so what I'm proposing to do here is just to kind of essentially expand a process that's already kind of existing, because all the time, there's the question of an applicant will come, before the Historic Preservation Commission, or actually even before that, they'll contact the commission, or before that, they'll contact the Historic Preservation Office, and they'll say, I want to make this change. I want to build this. Maybe it's an attached addition. Maybe it's a detached addition. What in this process we would refer to as an accessory dwelling unit or an ADU, and they there needs to be a determination about whether this can be something that can be approved with a certificate of no effect per the Historic Preservation Officer, per city code, Historic Preservation Ordinance, or whether it's something that doesn't kind of meet the conditions by which a certificate of no effect can be issued, and therefore a certificate of appropriateness would be needed, which would of course require it to come before you all on the Historic Preservation Commission. So some time ago, this is back, I believe, 2010, 2011, the Historic Preservation Commission had approved a kind of a set of guidelines by which a project would, essentially qualify for a certificate of no effect, which would allow, again, the Historic Preservation Officer, myself, just to issue that certificate without the applicant having to come before the Historic Preservation Commission for a certificate of appropriateness. Now, is there another slide in the next? Okay, I did not include that. My apologies. Yeah, if we can go back then. So so anyway, what this proposed language does is it essentially kind of purposes, some of that already previously approved language. And when I say previously approved, it was approved by the Historic Preservation Commission back in 2010, 2011. These are design guidelines, again, that would be that would allow a project to qualify for issuance of a certificate of no effect by the Historic Preservation Officer. So again, with that in mind, this language that I'm proposing is that if a proposed ADU, one, sits entirely behind the historic home and is not visible from the street, two, has a roof line lower than the historic house, three, meets the ADU square footage or footprint percentage standard established by the city, which is still a bit of a work in progress. And then four, utilizes and only because it hasn't been approved yet, I should say. And four, utilizes a design connection to the historic building, paint color, and building materials, subject to HPO's review and approval based on compatibility with the Secretary of the Interior standards, shall be considered per City Code Chapter 14, A-6, that's Historic Preservation Ordinance, quote, work obviously minor in nature and therefore eligible for a certificate of no effect issued by the Historic Preservation Officer. That should be applicants who build ADUs that do not meet all of the above provisions must request and receive a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Preservation Commission per City Code Chapter 14A-6. So what the language is proposing here is not anything new. It's not asking the Historic Preservation Commission or the city to entrust the Historic Preservation Officer or the Historic Preservation Office with authority that's not already granted in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, City Code Chapter 14A. But rather, the idea here is just to essentially take that authority and just apply it to a slightly new process or an updated process, in this case regarding ADUs. So if a person was proposing to build an ADU on their property and it met all of these provisions 1 through 4, then it would qualify for certificate of no effect. Let's say they propose to build an ADU that where the roof line was, let's say the same line as the historic house, or maybe higher, or it was, partially visible from street view. Then they would have to go before the commission for a certificate of request for a certificate of appropriateness, and that's the same process that exists now if someone were to, wishing to build a detached, let's say build an addition, whether it's attached or detached, onto their house. So it's really the kind of the same process. It's just kind of clarifying for the potential ADU applicant in this FAQ user guide how that process would work. So I hope that makes sense to you. And if not, please let me know, and I'm happy to address any questions that you might have or solicit any comments on the language itself.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lechner and Mr. Levesque. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments on this proposed language?
I have one question.
Yes.
Zach, have you considered whether or not it says that the proposed language states that it sits entirely behind the historic house and is not visible from the street? Have you considered what happens at a corner lot?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we could potentially kind of clarify that in a way if you have a suggestion for doing that, or if we could just if we could say with the exception of a corner lot, perhaps, because yeah, you're right. You drive around the house, you're going to see it, and that's not really the fault of the homeowner. So yeah, Commissioner Robinson, would you be interested in having me put in some language there, kind of exempting corner lots from that point number 1?
Well, perhaps. I'm just not sure, depending upon what the goal is. If it's to be not seen, it would almost exclude the addition of an ADU at a corner lot.
Yeah, which the state law wouldn't allow us to do. So, well, it's we could still potentially include it. It just all it would mean is that the language, I should say, we include the language as is for number one, but all it would mean is that it would just require the applicant to go before the commission for a certificate of appropriateness. That might not be a bad idea because it could potentially have the ADU could have quite a bit of a visual impact,
Mhm.
if it were a corner lot. So, yeah, I mean, again, that it wouldn't mean they couldn't do it. It just would mean it would have to go through the additional step of coming before the commission, which is again probably something that I would already recommend, if or not even recommend that we would require the applicant to do, even outside of this process, kind of within the current process, because the series of items that are approved by the HPC back in 2010, 2011 regarding what constitutes eligibility for a certificate of no effect. It does include language about kind of sitting behind the home and visibility. So it wouldn't really be changing anything to require or providing more of a hurdle to require the applicant to come before the commission for a certificate of appropriateness rather than kind of having essentially a desk approval by HPO with a certificate of no effect.
Chair Woodson?
Yes, Mr. Lake.
If I may make a suggestion or maybe a recommendation that a lot of times we have zoning code regulation requirements that basically require maybe a screening, like screening of a bay door, or we have parking lot screen walls. But from a code applicability standpoint, we only require that screening to be directly in front of the screening element. So we don't ding them if we're turning the corner or we're looking at a side angle view of the property where, oh, I could still see the bay door. It's that front elevation. So if you might want to consider revised language that basically describes that front elevation view so that the property is not dinged on whether or not they're viewable from a corner or from a secondary street side that might be visible from behind the property.
Or maybe you say the primary street, something along those
Yeah,
lines.
yeah, and whichever the house is oriented, obviously,
Right.
as their front.
Mhm.
So, Mr. Chair, I think just
Yes.
adding to him, if you just have a language that if the ADU is not visible from the street, that just covers corner lots and any other lots.
From the street front, yeah.
Yeah. So actually, number one is, as written, is also okay.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Commissioner Justice?
Dr. Lechner, is there a way that we could edit this language to better match SOI standards 9 and 10? Because those essentially have it already laid out there. And some of the language in your fourth point, like we don't, trying to find a good word for it, but we don't really pay attention to paint and color because it's something that can be changed so frequently. Is there a way we can use language more suited towards like compatible yet distinct for that point, or some language to do with like differentiation of massing, and maybe hit on like standard 3 where it can't totally blend into the historic property, but it needs to be differentiated. Some of that language that's already in the SOI standards, I think would be beneficial to include in here. And
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good idea. So if you don't mind, Commissioner Justice, if you want to, would you want to take a crack at maybe
yeah, surely.
revising the language there and
Yeah, I would be happy to.
take a look. Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, you send that to me and we'll
Okay.
see about getting that integrated. Because I agree. If we're going to be basing it on the Secretary of the Interior standards, then using that specific language would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then I think also for property owners, when they do come to this commission, if something doesn't meet the requirements, they kind of know already what those requirements are going to be and how
Right.
this commission is going to review those applications.
Correct. Yeah, makes sense.
Well, yeah, I'll take a stab at drafting it and let you know. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good point. All right, any further questions for Dr. Lechner on this item? All right, hearing none, and I think you were just looking for feedback on this item, correct?
That's right. Yeah, there's no need to pass a motion or for a resolution or anything like that. Yeah, the feedback has been very helpful, so I appreciate that, commissioners.
All right, very well. And then do you want to just circulate that updated language over an email message, or does this need to come back for an agenda item?
No, I think if well, it's really up to the commission, of course, but I think if the commission is agreeable, I can just recirculate the revised version via email, and any additional feedback I can take and incorporate that way.
All right, very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Moving on, we were chair and staff updates and announcements. As chair, I do not have any updates or announcements. So moving on to staff.
I have a handful of quick updates, Chair. First one I mentioned is related to the Historic Preservation Ordinance proposed revisions, which at recent meeting, the Historic Preservation Commission had recommended adoption of those revisions to the HP ordinance. Just want to tell you that first hearing for proposed changes to the HP ordinance was held at a August 26th meeting of City Council. Mayor and Council at that time did not have any comments or request a presentation, but this is a two-meeting process for the council, so the second and the final hearing for this item will be on September 19th. That's when the council will actually, mayor and council will actually vote on whether or not to adopt the revisions to the historic preservation ordinance. Number two, the resolution adopting the Asians and Asian Americans in Tempe historic context study, which again was recommended by HPC at a previous meeting for adoption, was adopted by council at its August 26th, aforementioned August 26th regular council meeting. So that's a good thing. It's a thing to celebrate. That was adopted unanimously and without discussion. Number three, the Hackett House site redevelopment request for proposals. Some of you might be happy to know that no proposals were received for that request for proposals. So what that means is that council, mayor and council will meet again in e-session. I'm told that will take place next week on the 19th to determine next steps. So it's very possible at that point that the RFP will they'll at some point they'll determine to reissue the RFP. There might be potentially changes could be made to it. We don't know exactly what the plan will be, but we'll just kind of have to we'll keep our eyes open and see what council decides to do with that particular site. And then fourth, just want to give you a quick update on Gonzalez Martinez house. Not much to share, but I just like to keep you in the loop about that site because it's so important and so very historic. So there's no further info that we've received from the developer on specific design plans for the larger sites redevelopment. But the phase 2 environmental survey assessment is still the next step on the site. They recently, or the contractor's in the process of bringing on a new kind of archaeological subcontractor to assist with the boring, monitoring, and that's going to take a little bit of time. So don't know exactly when that phase 2 will kick off, but that once it does and once it's completed, that will provide a lot of useful information on kind of environmental any kind of environmental conditions on the site, and certainly the developer will want to know and benefit from that information. Those are my updates. Don't have any more at this point.
All right, Dr. Lechner. I have a question for you about from our last meeting where we had the presentation about the National Register of Historic Places nomination for the Hayden Flour Mill on Silos. And I believe they were going to be going forward with that. And do you have any update on where that might be?
I don't. The last I had heard was that it was kind of undergoing the revisions, um, and I I believe that the applicant had told me that they were going to let me know when it was submitted to the National Park Service, but I haven't heard from them. But that it's possible it may have been submitted. What I typically do in this case is I just kind of keep my eyes on the National Park Service website, and there's a kind of an updated, kind of constantly updated National Register spreadsheet that shows kind of all of the properties. And so I'll just kind of periodically do a search. But I would also expect to be contacted, even before I kind of get to that point. But regardless, it's in motion. I do want to let you know it can, if you're not aware, some commissioners are aware of this, but the keeper of the register can take up to 45 days, and they have a maximum of 45 days to review a nomination once they receive it. So this is all a very roundabout way of me telling you I don't really know where things are at in the process, but but I will be sure to let you know as soon as I hear anything, in regard to the nomination. And in fact, I'll send a little email to the applicant and just ask them if they might be able to provide me with an update on where things stand. And once they get back to me, I'll forward you the information just so you're aware, and don't have to wait for the actual let's hope approval and listing in the National Register. So I'll give you an update when I have it.
All right, very well. Yes, I think we would need to see an update on that when it proceeds. But I guess there was a local, wasn't it, Historic Sites Review Committee that they were going to go to right after seeing us?
They did. They did. Yeah, they did go to the Historic Sites Review Committee, which is kind of associated with the State Historic Preservation Office, and that committee did approve it, not unanimously, but with one dissenting vote. Interestingly enough, by my predecessor as Tempe Historic Preservation Officer, but he had some good reasons, but he just didn't quite think the nomination was quite ready. But the other committee members disagreed and thought it was ready to be submitted to the keeper of the register once some revisions were made to the nomination. So it passed that process, and so really it was just up to the applicant to make those revisions. And I'm sorry if I thought I had updated you on that process, and my apologies if I had not. I had certainly intended to. So that's kind of where things stand now, just waiting for those revisions and then submission to the keeper. But That's my understanding, but I'll let you know for sure once I reach out to the applicant.
Very well, thank you. All right. If your updates are concluded then, Dr. Lechner, I guess we'll go to other staff. Any other staff updates?
Meets,
This is Brenda Abney.
has
Ah, right. And there is an update from Brenda Abney. Are you online still?
I am here. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good. Commissioners, I just wanted to alert you to the fact that our season has started for doing activities at historic houses once again. And there are 4 houses that we're featuring this season in order to have public open house visitation. That includes Peterson House, Elias Rodriguez House on 8th Street, Eisendrath House on College Avenue, and the Hayden House downtown. We have, these are free and open to the public. We also have some additional docent-led tours that people can book through the same website that they register for any classes, that individuals and small groups can sign up to visit Peterson House or Eisendrath House as well. And then we will have additional activities and alert you to those as the season goes on, such as music events at Eisendrath House. But for now, these are the dates of the open house free tours. And our exhibit called Extending a Hand, Cesar Chavez, an Arizona Connection, only has 3 weeks left before it closes. So if you or any of your colleagues are interested in seeing that exhibit, please head to the museum. We have some information online as well that you can take a look at, and it's been a very well received exhibit and series of programs, so we're proud to have that. We are also going to be making a traveling version of it because we've had a number of requests for a small pop-up exhibit on the theme that we'll be able to place in different areas, probably around the main valley and actually down to Yuma and a couple of other places. So that's a couple of highlights happening with the Museum and Historic Houses. I hope you'll have an opportunity to join us at one of these events.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing the information. And we can all kind of share this around ourselves with some of our friends and colleagues. Thank you. All right. Any further updates?
Chair and Commission members, I don't have any other updates.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Unless there's anything else, I will move on to adjourning the meeting this evening. And it is 8:02 p.m. So thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all.